I find the lack of Azure governance disturbing in some companies, and some were used to be my customers, okay, but now that we implemented governance, I'm not so disturbed anymore. But before we even get started for presentations, I'd just like to bring here basically something, okay? Is that it's kind of an icebreaker, okay? If having coffee in the morning, okay, doesn't wake you up, okay, if this just doesn't work for you anymore, well, try to delete a production resource group, okay? And yes, this already happened to me. So one of my customers calls me really in the night because they had messed up and they deleted the wrong resource group. And they deleted a production basically instead of one of the development resource groups that they had. And yeah, recovering this was like 5 a.m. in the morning or something. I didn't have coffee, but it wake me up. Okay, so it works pretty well. So doing a short presentation about myself, my name is Tiago. I work as a cloud architect and advisor for a bunch of companies around the world. I basically work for myself as an independent contractor, so I have the chance to not work in just one company, which is something that it might be interesting for some, but for others it's not, and we are all different, okay? And I personally prefer to have multiple customers that I can help in very specific problems, and then I can be really really expert on those, and then I can just jump from customer to customer and help them on that. So it's pretty awesome what we can do with that. I'm also an MVP for Azure MCT regional lead, and I'm also a member of the Microsoft Certification Council. So all of that. You have my contacts in here. So that's my Twitter handler, Tiago Costa PT. And then my website and also my email. So if you want to reach out, yeah, just please do. Happy to help with that. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, please do. I usually share tons of stuff around Azure. Um, so all the new stuff that comes out, and I usually blog also on my website, always around Azure. That's the only thing that I do. It's Azure. Okay. What is the agenda for today? So I just want to clear things up here with cloud today. What is my view on cloud today? And then we're going to cover some of the pain points that we have when we need to design an Azure infrastructure for customers, which is subscriptions, management groups, policies, role-based access control, and cost management. Because like it or not, well, we always wanted to have Azure AD P2 for everyone. We always wanted to have Security Center activated for everyone with Sentinel, with log analytic. Well, I want everything, but we need to see what is the cost benefit of having that. So it's always nice to understand and to talk a little bit about cost management. So let's start to talk about what is my view on cloud today. So my view is really simple, is that today cloud is a complex environment. We need to run millions of cloud resources, okay? We have multi-cloud environments because we no longer have, oh, we only use Azure, or we only use AWS, or we only use Google Cloud. Okay, whatever. Companies that are a certain size, at least, they run a multi-cloud environment. And we need to find a way to, have a security perspective, a governance perspective that can reach all those clouds. We cannot just say, oh, in Azure, I do it like this, but on AWS, I'm going to do it in a totally different way. Sometimes because, well, they are two different clouds. Yeah, sure, we need to kind of adapt a little bit because some stuff is not supported in one and it's on the other, sure, but we need to kind of generalize the approach that we have. And also, cloud today is not something that only goes, okay, to a specific business unit. It's not, oh, just that marketing that is using this, or just human resources. And that was the case. And look, I worked with Azure for 10 years now. That was the case when we started. It was just a small project here. And look, it is totally different for what I have to do today, because governance was not even a thing back then. Okay, we just implemented stuff. Oh yeah, it's working great, awesome. We created some documentation, and that was it. We didn't do that much, to be totally honest with you. But not today. Okay, today, yes, look, this is a big thing. And of course, what cloud management capabilities, okay, do we have today? I love that my PowerPoint works. There you go. So we need to think about 5 big, okay, key points in here, which is security. Look, we are in a security conference. I don't need to explain how security is important. Okay, I'm not going to bother you guys with that. But yeah, we need to do that. We need to also think about that. We need to protect our data, protect our workload. So backup, disaster recovery. I mean, even before we start, I was just reading your emails, and I have like a customer basically we need to design a disaster recovery solution for them. That's something that definitely we need to do. And we also need to understand what's going on with our infrastructure, being infrastructure as a service, being PaaS, being SaaS. We need to work out what is going on there. And for that, we have to monitor things, and we have applications, infrastructure, network monitoring, and we can have log analytics, Azure Monitor, all of that. We also need to think about configuration. And we have today amazing tools like ARM, okay, that helps a lot on this, which is the baseline of the base of all the Azure stuff. And we have tools like Bicep, that is basically a DSL tool, or Terraform, that can help on that. But not only that, we also can script stuff in PowerShell, and with Azure DevOps take care of that. Or we can use Chef, Puppet. So all those tools. And look, I'm just saying here some names, and I'm not being fair because there are so many amazing tools to do this out there. I'm just popping up some names that just came up on my mind right now. But all this is great, and yes, we have all this, but there is now, well, a very important part on the cloud management capabilities, which is basically this part here, which is the governance part. So we need to think about policy management and cost management in a way to govern our cloud resources. It's not like I don't want to be the bad guy here, but I don't want to allow my Azure administrators to create whatever they want. I need to control what they create, how they create, because for sure we have what? We have internal policies, nothing to do with Azure policies, okay? Just internal rules, okay? That tells us that, oh, look, Tiago, data needs to reside in this specific region. So sure, like right now, for example, I'm doing that for a customer that they have a country in Europe where the data needs to be, and another, and it needs to be also in the United States. And we have 2 types of data. Some data needs to be there, the other data needs to be in the US. And those are the only 2 regions that I can use. So it is majorly important for me to create ways, okay, to govern that, so that I'll tell, no, look, you cannot create resources to store data outside those 2 authorized regions, and that's it. And together with role-based access control, I even have to do better, which is we have an IT team in Europe. That team cannot create stuff in the US because they're not going to be allowed. That's the internal rule. Makes sense, doesn't make sense, doesn't matter. That is the rule, and we have to do that. And we also need to think about cost management. And I'm also going to cover that in just a moment, and how Azure Policies even can help us also on that. Okay. So to govern, there you go. I have policy-based management. Okay. I can enforce, okay, standards that are my enterprise standards, so that I can have proper control, proper compliance. I can do cost management and optimizations. I need to monitor my spending. Is it I am within budget? I'm not within budget. But better yet, will I be in budget? Will I not be in budget before it happens? And we have the tools in Azure to do that kind of stuff. So we can predict, okay, that, well, if I keep the costs as they are, the traffic, everything, Azure will predict the bill that I will pay in the end of the month or in the end of the period that I have. And I'm looking at that and I see, yeah, sure, look, I will be within budget. So if I don't create crazy resources in here that are freaking expensive, if I don't have a huge unexpected load because I have auto scaling and stuff like that, yeah, I should be within budget. But if you look at that and you see that, oh my God, this is already out of budget, well, in the end of the period, it will be even worse. And maybe you need to take actions. Maybe your budget was not created properly. Okay, sure, that can be a reason too. But you have to take actions on that. You should not just like, hey, let's just see how it goes. And in the end of the period, someone will deal with that. No, okay, you need to understand why. I had one customer that they didn't do that. They just said, oh yeah, in the end of the period, this might align, and he didn't. And when they asked me, hey, can you just check why we have this? We're not expecting such a high bill, blah, blah, blah. Basically, they had a very small environment. And they had a development environment that someone created huge machines on that without the need, because they were allowed to. We need to govern this, okay? So for this, we need to do subscription governance, okay? Which is, I can have basically predefined templates, even from DevOps teams and with the DevOps teams that already have the security and all the compliance requirements that, hey, if you want to deploy a VM, you don't go to the portal and just say, yeah, new VM, and you have the options that shows up in the portal for everyone. No, this is the standardized virtual machine for those kinds of workloads. And it's already there. It's a template. Do it on Bicep, ARB templates, Terraform. Look, I'm not picky with that. That's not the topic today. But just do it in one thing like that, and you should be good to go. Okay. But cloud governance is not, just create policies and all of that. It's also to document. And I know when I say documentation, people freak out and people don't like to create documentation. Well, I love to do that for governance. If you tell me like, oh, it's an application and create a documentation like, oh, to create a customer, you need to click here and then there. I'm like, yeah, that's not my thing. But this is like guidelines, okay? And for example, in one of my customers, we're now migrating applications from on-prem to Azure. And the documentation that I'm creating for them is, look, this is a standardized way to deploy and to bring the applications in here. Some diagrams, some justification why we're doing that, the policies that we're going to apply, why they need that, why we need 1 subscription, 2 subscriptions, or 20 subscriptions. That's the kind of stuff that we need to do. And that's pretty cool. In that document, you should also create naming conventions. Because I'm an Azure administrator now. Let's imagine. Just take the ad, put the Azure admin at. And I need to create a VM. Well, in a bunch of other stuff, I need to have a name for my resource, my Azure resource. What is the name that I want to give to my VM? It will be VM prod workload -00. That's it. That might be a good name. I don't know. But I have a colleague that, he just likes to call VMs the names of Marvel superheroes. So it just goes there and he just calls one of the superheroes that he wants. And I'm like, what? I'm not saying that he is wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that we need to have a standardization. That as a team, we need to agree. Someone needs to take the decision. This is how we create resources, and it's per resource type that we need to do this. Then creating subscriptions. Look, you don't create a subscription just because you want, at least not in my customers, not when I'm in charge. You have to justify why you need an Azure subscription. Why do you need an Azure subscription? So what we do is we create forms that you just need to fill in the form, ask for an Azure subscription. You justify why you need it. It will be analyzed by the team. We have SLAs to respond to that. Usually it needs to be like 24, 48 hours. You can't take more than that. People need to do their work. And we need to, take actions on that. And then, yeah, if sometimes, most of the times I have to say that people just want a subscription because they don't know that they don't need a subscription and that they can just reuse a subscription. So, and sometimes they want a subscription because they want to have kind of the ownership, the false ownership that they are in control. Oh, this is my subscription. But that will take issues in terms of how do we organize resources and things like that on Azure. So we really don't want that. So we really need to have a proper justification why people need a subscription. So yeah, just create a form, and usually you can put this in your ITSM tool, or just create a form on Microsoft Forms or whatever works for you. Then about Azure Policies, we're going to cover that. We need to document all of them and why and where they are assigned, what they do and where they are assigned and why they are assigned there. So you need to justify why you are putting like, oh, in this subscription, you can only create resources in Switzerland. Okay, that's good, but why? Because I can see that on the Azure portal, but why is that? You need to create that. And you need to say, well, we have done this because there is this internal compliance that we need to have only resources in here. Okay, so we need to justify. Because, what happens is that in 2 years' time, if that internal compliance changes, someone can check my document and can say, this doesn't make sense anymore. We can change this. Because they understand why I took the decisions 2 years ago to take that. And so this is the kind of stuff that we need to think about. Create incident response plans. So we need to take action on that. I'm sure some of you heard Cosmos DB, the issue in security that we have with Cosmos DB. Did you guys heard? Can go in the chat if you want and say yes if you did. Okay, I can see the chat on my phone, I think. Okay. I have customers where I open an incident response plan for that, which is like, look, we have this. This is like a big thing. Look, we need to change the keys. We need to update the keys. And yeah, my customers some of them already have done it. Others are still working on it, and not all the Cosmos DB are changed the keys or not yet. But that was an incident response that we had because there's an issue, big issue there, and we need to do this. If there is other issues like, oh, someone got into this system, why? We need to investigate and we need to take actions on that. So all starts where what? In Azure subscriptions. And before we even talk about, subscription, we need to understand regions. A region is a set of data centers that those data centers are always deployed in the same country. So when we say, like, for example, I don't know, like, let's just open here this, Central India. That's easy, right? Because look, it's India. So yeah, it needs to be within India. But sometimes we have others like Southeast Asia. And you're like, what the hell is that? Well, there is documentation for that. You look at it and you see Singapore. That means all the data centers that are corresponding to that region are within that country. Same thing here in Europe, like West Europe, North Europe. What the hell is that? We need to go to the documentation and check. Oh, West Europe is the Netherlands. That means one thing. All the data centers are within that country. And that is important for data residency concerns. Other regions are easy to understand, like South Africa, Chile, North Central, Brazil. It has the damn country name there. So, but that means that yes, all the data centers are in that region. Going back one, we have a bunch of regions worldwide. I already put 68 plus so that I'm always right, okay? Because there is plenty of regions. Some of the regions, they are not what we call the global Azure. So they are, and you can see them, some of them here in mainly in the US. Okay, maybe let me just zoom this in here. So we have here like US Gov, DoD. So DoD stands for Department of Defense, and some stuff like that. So we're all also counting those on those 68 plus. But more are coming, and then Microsoft is really expanding, okay, Azure a lot. And we have seen new regions coming in, and you can see here some are dotted here on the map. That means that they're going to bring them in. An important part of all this, the region stuff, is it's great for data residency concerns. And there is also another, let's just say, thing that you need to consider, which is services availability, feature availability. Is that not all the regions have the same features. Not all the regions have the same services. Sometimes you just check, I don't know, blockchain is not a good example because it got deprecated, but ACR, Azure Container Registry, for example, it wasn't available until a few months ago in Switzerland. And one of my customers, they have a bunch of containers that they needed to run, and they need to have everything in the same region. And well, the only option was create a VM, install some kind of container registry, right, on that VM and work like that. Fortunately, they bring it in, and the customer was fine in trying that, even when they were in preview and all of that. But you really need to be careful with this, okay? Because especially new regions, they don't have sometimes obvious resources that you're expecting them to have. Again, there's documentation. Check the documentation on Microsoft website, and someday if you need to do that and can't find it, hey, tweet me something and I'll just basically send you the link. It's a link, and if you search on Google, Bing, whatever you use, Azure products by region, it's probably the first one to get there. But well, we need to create a subscription. A subscription is basically a logical unit of Azure resources, and we create this as a good boundary and an easy boundary for security and for billing. A lot of companies, they create, oh, that country, oh, subscription, and then they put their local resources over there. And Tiago, it's easy for me to check, oh, you spent 2,000 euros, $2,000, whatever it is, this month on that. So I will just pay, basically the headquarters pays directly to Microsoft and then recharges that internally to the country. And it's very easy, and it's a security boundary too, because people from that country, the local IT, they have permissions here. They can do, well, not whatever they want, but they can do stuff here, but they don't even access the other countries. They don't have access to corp subscriptions and stuff like that. So it's an easy way to do this kind of stuff. Sometimes, like you see here in the picture, we have a development subscription, we have a testing subscription, and we have a production subscription. So that it's also something, that yes, you can have one subscription per environment. And again, it's nice, and again, a good security and billing boundary, an easy one at least, because you can easily just say, oh, you are a contractor. So I have a rule that says, yeah, development subscriptions, you're good, you can have access. But production subscriptions, no. You cannot have access to production subscriptions. So that works like that. And as you can see here, all those subscriptions, they are connected here basically to an Azure Active Directory tenant. So there's a tenant, and one tenant can have multiple subscriptions. One subscription can only be connected to one tenant, and that's important for role-based access control stuff that we're going to see in just a moment. There's a bunch of types of subscriptions, enterprise agreements, CSPs. Look, I just want to say something here with this, that you need to be careful. There are differences between them. They are not like, oh, they work like all the same. No. Yes, you can create resources on them. Sure, no problem. You have role-based access control. There's a lot of stuff that is the same. Sure, the majority of things. But there are slightly differences, especially in terms of how it's built, how they build it to you, and also how do you create them, how you manage them. So more on the management part of the subscriptions, okay? That sometimes cloud solution providers, it's even worse because, oh, I want to do this. Well, it depends on your CSP. CSP implements it in one way, the other implements in a different way. It is something that, yeah, Microsoft should do a better job in creating that consistency, and it's still not there. They will get there, okay, but it's still not there, so just watch out. With this, we create a bunch of subscriptions. I don't want to say a number because it really depends a lot on the customer, etc. But I don't have a single environment in a single customer that doesn't have more than one subscription. No one works with just one subscription unless you're doing for yourself just a short, or it's a very small business. Okay, yeah, just one subscription, that will be great. It might work, but you don't even pay, okay, for subscriptions, so should not be a problem. But we need to find a way to govern those multiple subscriptions as a unit, and that's management groups. So as you can see here, I have a management group here, which is my tenant management group. Then I have my ES, then I have my platform stuff, I have my landing zones, I have my sandboxes, and I have here decommissioned. So this is something that I create, a decommissioned resource group that has like role-based access control on, okay, the management group that tells like, look, you can't change stuff. Usually it's only read-only stuff, and it's like subscriptions that they are no longer needed, and we just push them there for a while until we make sure that yes, they're no longer needed. Yeah, there's no dependencies in here, until we just say, yeah, we can delete the subscription, so that the subscription doesn't show up here, and then someone else doesn't create stuff on that subscription when we are deleting, or where we are in the process of saying, can we delete this or not? Oh yeah, we can. Oh damn, now someone created stuff here. Oh my god. So that doesn't happen. Then we have here another management group, and then we have subscriptions. And look, here in the picture, we only have one subscription, but this one here can have multiple subscriptions in the same management group. And then the subscription has the resources. The idea of this is that, well, what I can do is I can govern my subscriptions because I can just take Azure Policies in the management group level. I can take cost management on the management group level. I can do Azure Policies, role-based access control on the management group level. So this is a level on top of subscriptions that we have to manage a group of subscriptions. So benefits will be what? Logical representation of your organization, apply policies, role-based access control, check costs, and create a way to govern subscriptions. But let's just take a minute here, and let's just try to do here a demo, okay? So this is my Azure portal that you're seeing here. And if I go where, if I go here to subscriptions, you can see that, well, I have a bunch of different subscriptions in here, right? And you can see some of them here that they basically say, oops, sorry. So this is like AZ Contoso, and this is Canada. I have this for corp, is for my dev stuff. This is for production. And then I have like Germany, Netherlands, Portugal, Singapore. You get the idea. So I have like a bunch, and this is my demo environment, by the way, okay? But I have like one per country because of my local ITs. Let's just imagine, oh, you know, they need to do something, etc. Yeah, great. So we created something like this. But if I go to management groups, I created a management group that kind of represents that, which is I have here my AZ Contoso root. And if I open this here, so you can see that I have Corp. And if I go to Corp, you can see that I have those two subscriptions. Yeah, the Corp subscriptions, the development and the production. And then let's minimize. If I go to branches, okay, oh, I even have another level of management groups, which is Asia, Europe, North America, and also South America. If I open here Asia, I have only Singapore. That's only where I have business. Let's just imagine this. If I open Europe, you know, I have 4 subscriptions, and you see here Germany, Netherlands, Portugal, and UK. And you get the idea, right? So it's pretty cool, the stuff that I can do with this. And then look, I can just go to branches. So I'm here in my branches management group. And now if I go to access control, okay, identity access management, you can do whatever you were used to do. This is role-based access control. So I can just say add a role assignment in here. Okay, and now I can select here, I don't know, this user here, AZ104, for example, and I can say, oh, you're going to be a contributor. And this user now is going to be a contributor on that management group. What that means? That means that he's also a contributor in everything that is below that. Every subscription that I have there. So branches, I had like Europe, I had like basically all the countries. Okay, and this we're going to get at. So it's a very high level permission, so I'm not going to do this, but that was going to be the idea. I can also apply policies at the management group level, and I can also do cost management, but we're going to check out that in just a second. Okay, so now it's time to talk about what? It's time, I'm just checking if we have questions. I don't see any. So now it's time, okay, to talk about policies. And the idea is that I can create policies. I already have hundreds of built-in policies that I can assign. And I just need to say, yeah, that policy that is already created, I'm going to assign to that scope. A scope can be what? A scope can be a management group, a subscription, or a resource group. So you can even go to the detail of a resource group. Or you can create your own policy yourself. Okay, so that's also a possibility, because built-in policies, they are generic so that everyone can use it. But I'm sure you have very, very specific, okay, details that you want to see in this. So sure, we can also do that. Okay. So what do we have here? So we have, in terms of Azure policies, some examples. Allowed locations. So you can just say, and this is a built-in one, by the way. I can just say that you can only create resources in that region, and let's just do a demo right away. Okay, and let's just see this here in action. I already have a policy that states this. It's the allowed locations, and it's assigned to my subscription that is the AZ Contoso UK. And what it does is that it controls that I can only create resources in the UK in that subscription. That's what it says. So let's do that. let's go to create a resource. I don't know, let's create a storage account. That doesn't matter which resource is. So let's just click create here. And let me choose the AZ Contoso UK. And right now, you're seeing here a policy validation error because I'm selecting East US, okay? And what you're saying is that the value East US in that field is denied. So I cannot create, okay, every kind of resource. It doesn't need to be just storage accounts, but if you want, you can also do that. You can say storage accounts cannot be in the can only be created in the UK, but if it's a database, yeah, it can be created in other regions. Okay, you can even go to that detail. But here is for all the resources. Okay, so but if I change this to, you know, one of the UK regions, you will see, ta-da! Great, right? So basically, it just tells me that, hey, now you can create. And I'm not going to create this, but if I moved on, yeah, this will work. If I change to, I don't know, like West Europe, which is where I usually create all my stuff, bam, you see the error again in here. Cool, huh? And how do I did this? How do I created that? Well, let's go to policies. Okay, so you just need to type policy. And you can find here the policy dashboard. And I can find here that basically these are just some that are of my policies that are applied here. You can check a secure compliance score, which is horrible, my compliance score. Again, this is a demo environment. So yes, I have a bunch of stuff that is wrong and I'm never going to fix it so that you guys can see it and I can talk about it. But in a real company, a really enterprise, that's not a score you want to see, to be totally honest. So, but if you see here, this is the allowed locations UK, this last one. And this is the name of the assignment. You can see view here the definition of the of basically the policy. And the policy is this, is a piece of JSON. And what the policy is saying is that, hey, look, let me just scroll down here. I will deny, that's the effect of this, I will deny this if you're trying to create stuff that the field location is not in the list of allowed locations. And if you go back, if I click here to edit the assignment, this is the assignment of that policy. And if you go to parameters, you see that I have two selected regions. And if you scroll down, you will see that, yeah, are the two UK regions. And this is how we did it, okay? So it's really quite easy to implement policies, okay? Other stuff that I can do, look, I can make sure that you're only using some resource types. You're only creating resource types. Two examples. There are resources that are freaking expensive. And you need to create them. No, because we don't have the needed skills to use them. So it's a production subscription. Do you really want to create Databricks, Kubernetes clusters? No, because look, we have an internal policy that says we don't use that. That doesn't mean that you're right or wrong. We just say that you don't use that, period. So yeah, let's just have that. There is a policy for allowed resource types, and that's another one not allowed. So you can just say, hey, I only allow this, 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 and this, or you just do the other way around. You can also go to virtual machine SKUs. So that's the sizes of the virtual machines. And let's be honest, most subscriptions that you have for regular workloads, do you really need those machines that have, I don't know, 300 or 400 CPUs and 16 terabytes of RAM, and they are the cost of a house per month? You probably don't. Most companies, and I will say 99.9 something% of the companies, they don't need to create machines like that size. But someone has the permissions to do it. So come on. Don't even allow that, okay? Policies can help you on that. tagging, it's super important to tag resources. Make sure that it's mandatory to tag stuff. And again, policies can help you on that. Enable Azure backup on virtual machines, okay, etc. So all of that, yes, it can and it should be done. What are my top 5 policies? If you want that, sometimes people ask me, hey Tiago, what are the policies that you see that we should more often use? Well, definitely, I will say enforced locations. Okay, that's one that can be that is important. Okay, another one is the allowed SKUs. Okay, the VM sizes. Block VM management ports. That's an important one to enforce tags. Allow services, certain services that you can allow. You can even control NSG ports being open or not. Like, for example, that management ports, I control that by saying that, hey, look, on the NSG port, on the NSG rules, when you're trying to do an inbound or an outbound, hey, 22.3389, no, I'm not allowing you to do that. So I have a question here. Can these policies be bypassed using Terraform or any deployment script? So the answer is no, Mohammed. Okay, so but you can also do is you can deploy, okay, with ARM. Okay, you can also deploy the policies. Okay, but you cannot bypass them. This is not even a thing. Well, I'm not saying it right. So the thing is, if you have the permissions, yeah, you can always bypass them. Like you can also bypass them by PowerShell and things like that, because you can disable them, do whatever you need to do, and enable them again. But you have to have the right permissions, okay? But you can also do that through the portal if you wish. I have the permissions. I can go there, that one for the UK. I can disable it. I create a resource that's not in the UK, and then again, I will enable the policy. Now, what happens is I created a resource, but the policy will show up that is not compliant. And now it's showing that it is compliant. So if I show you this here, so if I show the policies in here, you can see here the last one. You see there, oh, it is compliant, that part over there, because I have no resources that are not within the UK. So all of them are within the UK. If I disable, I create a resource and then I enable the policy back again. The existing resources that are not compliant, they're still there, they're still running, no problem. But this here will show, like the other ones show to me, not compliant, not compliant, not compliant. Okay, so that's what's going to happen on there. But if you don't have the permissions, it's not because you're doing that through one way or the other that you're going to get and you're going to bypass stuff. Okay. So next, we talk about role-based access control in a very, very basically short way. The idea is role-based access control. This is built in the Azure Resource Manager, and this is used to segregate the duties on your team. Not everyone needs to have full permissions. So I can have a user, a group, a managed identity, an app registration, whatever it is. So a security principle. And I can give permissions in very different scopes. Management group, okay, subscription, resource group, or even to the individual resources, okay? So we can do that. And this is such a rich thing that I have a session just on RBAC, to be totally honest. And today we can go deep, we can create roles, we can there are services nowadays that they are also using rollback internally within the service. Azure Storage, Blob Storage is a great example. You have roles like data, Blob Data Contributor. If I give you that in a container inside a Blob Storage account, it's just for that container that I'm saying you can be a contributor. That means you can read and write the data in that container, but you have other containers. What about the other containers, Tiago? You can't do anything, probably. I don't know. If you want, you have to have the right permissions. So this is the kind of stuff that role-based access control is getting to the point of having this imagined in all the Azure services internally. Whoa, that will be super cool. Okay, really super cool to have. But we need to think about one very important thing, and this is a thing that I keep saying all the time. Azure roles are not Azure AD roles. When I say, oh, it's a contributor, or like you saw me doing on that demo, or a reader, or a owner, or one of the other more specific ones, those are Azure roles. Because if you go to Azure AD, you have other roles like global administrator, global reader, security administrator. And we have something that I have like this picture here that kind of explains that a lot, which is I have my tenant and I have my Azure AD rules on the tenant level. And then on the management groups or the resource groups or the subscription or the individual resources, I have those Azure roles, okay? Which here we even say Azure role-based access control roles. They are not the other ones, okay? They are two different things. Because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm global admin. Why don't I have access to this? And we're like, yeah, because that's kind of another thing, okay? So it's two different sets of permissions, okay? So we have 3 minutes. Let's talk about very shortly about cost management. So cost management, it's a super important part because, you know, someone needs to pay this. They really don't want to pay that much money. They want to pay the least amount of money possible, which I kind of relate to that. We always want that. And there are the obvious tools. Pricing calculator, Azure Migrate will tell you if you need to migrate stuff, how much you're going to pay, and a bunch of other migrations and assessment tools that we have. And of course, look, I don't bring third-party tools to my presentations. That when I do community-driven sessions like this, so I never take unless they are free. But there are a bunch of them paid out there that they are pretty good. Okay, really pretty good. And you can save tons of money using them. If you want, reach out to me. I can give you like kind of a list or something like that. Some of them that my customers use, but you don't need them to have a minimal thing. But you have to check out something. Is that managing costs is different for those 3 roles that you have here. You have an IT executive that, like a CIO, it just needs to understand if, okay, we're going to bring that service, it's going to bring this, what's the return on the investment of that, etc. Yeah, let's do it. You have the finance team that sometimes we kind of, oh yeah, finance team, wherever, they're always complaining. But look, they have a very important part on all of this, okay? They need to find the budget. Within the budget, they need to have the money ready for us when we need to pay. And they need to understand how much the company will invoice to have the money and to put the money in the account. This is here is stored to pay Azure. So it's important for us to be within the budget that we have for Azure. Because if we're not, they are going to have a hard time finding the money for that. Because if everything in the company just now we have a deviation of 20 or 30% more, they will be in trouble to pay all of that. So you really need to be careful with that. And then we have project teams that they are just focused on their project, right? So, but we all, for this, we have tools like tagging. Tagging is great. We have metadata, and we can just have like, this is the owner of that resource. That's the department. That's the cost center. And then through all of this, we can just find the billing. And finding the billing, okay, we need to have tools, because if we take the usage of Azure, there is a way to download a CSV file that has something like this. And you can't read this. Sure, it's not bad PowerPointing, not bad presentation. It's on purpose. So to represent that, we have so many lines of data on this, that's impossible for you to read. So we need a tool for this, because they have stuff on this like that storage account, that day, how much did it cost operations to read data, so transactions, and then to do this, and then to do that, and then to do that, and then the next day, per storage account, okay, per subscription. In a real company, like, I'm not going to say a large company, a mid-sized company, this is like freaking huge. Of course, you tell me like, oh, but we really need to have the CSV and then no, there's an API. So you can connect directly to the billing API and take the data out. That's basically what those third-party products, those third-party tools do. But you can also connect in Power BI as a connector to that. Okay, so in Power BI, I don't know if you guys know Power BI, but Power BI, you just go to Power BI, and then in Power BI, there's a get data and Azure, and then there's one thing that tells it's about billing API. Bam. And you just go there and you get that. Or you go to the cost management tool on the Azure portal and you just have a UI. You create budgets, you can create alerts on budgets and things like that over there. How
Hey,
to save money.
Tiago, just a time check. The 9 minutes are there.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just finishing. We're like 2 slides away or 3 slides away, okay, something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Cost savings, Azure reservations. So that's a great way to save, okay, to save money for this. So instead of paying, so if I go to reservations here, okay, imagine that I have a workload that I know that for the next years, that workload is going to be there. And let's imagine you click here, add a reservation is one of the services that you find here. Let's imagine in my example now, it's virtual machines. Let's go for virtual machines. And, you know, I now need to find here, this takes a while to load. Let's just wait for that. I need to know that it's going to have, I don't know, 5 machines that are standard underscore DS2s. Okay. So DS2 V2, let's just do this one here. Okay. This is loading the price on the bottom right of my screen. And when it loads, you will see the saving. It should be around 60 something percent, 66, 67, around that, or 58 now today on this one. Okay, so let's just say 58. Okay, you can see here, this is how much you pay less. Okay, it's 58%. This depends, by the way, it depends on the subscription, depends on the region that you select. Depends on the VM size, all of that, but usually it's, yeah, 58, 60 something percent is the amount that you can save, because I'm doing a reservation, and you can see here for West Europe, and I'll do a reservation for 3 years. So what happened, Tiago, if you don't use this? Well, if I don't use this, I still pay. So it's better to choose reservations when you're sure that you're going to have at least, because you click here at the cart, and now you have to select, okay, how many do you want? We need to click here, we need to go to the cart and change the quantity in here. Let's just say 5. So, and if we say 5, this will do, it will not increase, okay, the discount, but basically I'm going to pay this amount of money, okay, per the machines for per month, and in total 3 years will cost me this, and this is a 58% saving. So that's impressive. Okay, so this is a way to save money. Okay, another way to save money is you have hybrid benefits. So you can, if you already have licensing for Windows Server, for SQL Server on-prem, you can move your licenses if you have the correct type of licensing that allows you to do that. Microsoft, sometimes they give Azure credits for free for customers to bring customers into Azure. So if you're not in Azure yet, that can be also a good idea. Regions. There are regions more expensive than others. Okay, so watch out for that. Like the two most expensive regions right now, I don't want to lie, but I think is Brazil and Switzerland. So try to avoid those in terms of, okay, because of costs. Sometimes you tell me, oh, but I have data residency stuff. Yeah, sure. Okay. Not saying not to use them, but I'm just saying if you can avoid them, avoid them. Create budgets and then policies. Like we said, we can create policies to not allow certain VM sizes. You're saving on costs because of that. Sometimes you have people that they just, yeah, let me create your VM to check out this, and they create a super large VM just to test it, just to see, and then they forget about it running. This is real, okay? This already happened to me, I don't know how many times, and it's stupidly incredible how people sometimes, okay, do this, etc. Okay, and then we can create budgets. Okay, sure, we can create budgets. It's updated every 4 hours. Then we can trigger stuff with this, all of that, so that you are within the budget. This is important to understand. We need to have budgets, okay, because we want, and we need to create alerts, but it's not when you reach 100% of your budget. Is when you have 25%, 50, 75. Because if you reach 25% in, like, I don't know, let's exaggerate, in day one of the period is at least 30 days, you're like, whoa, something is really wrong here. Okay, so you need to take action. This is just a screenshot of the cost management tool, okay, that we have here. And you can see the burn down chart. This is how much you're forecasting to spend on the end of the period. You're like, yeah, I'm going to pay 80,000 euros or dollars. Sorry. You can see here some of the where you're spending the money. You have a list, like a table with lists that you can even check. That you can even check this a little bit better yet. Optimizations that you can do. Monitor your VMs, your compute. Is this the right size? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're over provisioning something. Try to decrease the size. You save money. Consider reserved instances and also spot instances. Running workloads in different regions. Use dev and task subscriptions. Then one that I need to add here that I forgot to add, which is deallocate VMs if you don't need to use them. Dev and test environments. Do you run dev and test 24/7? You might not need it. So you can just shut down the VMs, but you need to deallocate the resources at, I don't know, 7 p.m. And then you start at 7 a.m. the next morning because, your developers only work from 8 to 6, something like that. So you don't need to have the environments running 24 hours a day. On the weekend, people don't work on the weekend. Okay, just shut them down. Find a way, if for some reason they need to work, they can go there and they can click start and, stuff will start. So you can do that. I saw the question here now, and sorry because I'm not seeing the questions on my computer, Mohammed. You say that the policy differences, audit, and deny. So deny is what you saw on the demo that I did. You're not allowed even to create, okay, the resource. If you put that in audit, it will just tell you on the list that you're not fulfilling the policy. So it will be not compliant. And then you can click and you can see why is not compliant, and we'll see all the resources that are not compliant under that policy assignment. Okay, but you're still allowed to create them. There is more like, oh, this is kind of guidance, and I'm not kind of making it mandatory, and you can't. I'm not enforcing something. Okay, basically, kind of what it is. Okay, cool. So this is it. I don't know if you have more questions. Happy to answer to more questions. Thank you very much. My name is Tiago. This is how you can govern Microsoft Azure. So I hope that this is kind of a intro presentation for all the governance stuff that we could be here. I have a workshop, by the way, that I deliver which is like a 2-day workshop just on this. So it is for sure a lot of stuff that we can say here. You have all my contacts, so reach out if you wish. Follow me on Twitter. You have my website there, also my email. So if you want to have a word, just ping me. Happy to help. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Tiago. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. We'll catch up in the next session.